We will call our meeting to order tonight. Renata, if you do the roll call, please.
Sure. McEvers?
Here.
Gookin?
Sono presento.
Miller?
Here.
English?
Here.
Evans?
Here.
Ettinger?
Here.
We will rise for the invocation. We have Pastor J.O. Owens from the Heart of the City Church with us.
Thank you for having me tonight and just honoring this time of prayer. Let's just bow our heads and hearts as we go to the Father. If you're a believer, just believe with me today. Father, we just thank you for this moment, and we just lift up our wonderful city to you right now. We've had a few very sad things take place lately in the schools and with children, and I'd like to pray for that right now. Just asking that you would just send your comfort to the schools and to these families. And Father, we just pray for every teacher and every classroom, every family represented in our wonderful city, in this county. God, we just pray that you would cover our city. It's such a wonderful place to live. We ask that you would bless our city. The blessing of the Lord, which you speak of, which makes one rich and adds no sorrow, let it be our portion. Father, I just thank you for our mayor and every city counselor, and just ask that you'd give them great wisdom tonight. Father, I just pray over the agenda, Lord, that your will be done in each decision that has to be made. Father, for the best, the benefit for our city. You tell us to pray for those in authority because the decisions they make are so vital. So we do lift up those in authority over our city. We do ask that you would bless our city and all the families and businesses and every place that people meet. God, that your blessing would rest upon it. Thank you for this evening. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mayor.
What? Lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I don't believe we have many amendments to the agenda tonight, so we'll move on to the consent calendar. Is that you tonight, Wooding?
I would love to. I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented, including Resolution 18031.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
Evans?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Ettinger?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yeah.
Motion carried. Now is the time for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the council shall have 3 minutes to do so on any related city business. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to come up for public comment tonight?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add that if someone's here because of the article in the paper today regarding the property swap, this is the time to talk about it.
That's a public hearing, I believe.
Oh, is it a hearing?
Yeah, I think it is a hearing. Yeah, that's a hearing, so they'll have an
Okay,
opportunity.
very good. Thank you
Yeah.
for the correction.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, so
We do, sorry, Mayor, excuse me, we do have somebody coming up from the studio.
Okay.
I didn't realize we didn't have an audience up here. Jeff Crow, do I have to give my address since it's not public testimony? There we go. I live in the city. In case you hadn't heard or noticed, Channel 19 is no longer Channel 19. We've been moved as of this morning up to Channel 1301, which really doesn't roll off the tongue very well. But other issues are, for viewers out there, I went and spent an hour in line exchanging our box up here so I could monitor our live feed that we do up here for our city meetings. And after an hour in line and standing there with a number of senior citizens in particular who are being asked to hook up their own boxes, they're being handed a box at the counter and saying, here you are, basically good luck. And so when they call here asking for channels or help, I just implore the city people answering the phones, be patient, understand what they're going through, because it's a little hard to find us. It's a little hard to hook up your own television if you're not comfortable with it. I've been waiting 5.5 hours for our box to load at this point. We just now got us up. I had plugged it in at 1:30 this afternoon. So tell them, be patient. It's going to take a while for all of this data to cycle through. Online, you can't find the schedule. When I was up there, I was handed the program schedule. I'm sure you probably couldn't see it anyway, but this is the schedule that they'll hand you telling you where your new channel allocations are. We're currently not on this. And I was up there at 1 o'clock this afternoon when they had the freshest and newest one to hand out. So there's going to be some issues and some phone calls, so just want to give you a heads up to what you might run into out there with John Q. Public. Again, be patient if you're talking to them, because this is a harrowing experience. The line went out the door this morning. It was that way starting at 8 o'clock. They don't open till 9. So that gives you an indication of what folks are going through in the city. Just want to give you a heads up. Thank you.
All right.
Well, thank you for
Thank you,
Channel
Jeff.
19. You do a great job.
So we'll move on to announcements. Is there any member of the council that has announcement tonight?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Dan?
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Martin for Northwest Boulevard, and the timing on the lights is beautiful. If anyone's ever driven downtown, all the way up to the bridge or even beyond, it's like a straight shot now. So thank you for setting the timing on those lights so that things flow smoothly. Appreciate it.
Okay. Any other member of the council have a comment tonight? Okay, we'll get right down to business here. First one is the Public Works, and this is CB-18-1010, approval to municipal code chapters 425, 430, 517, 544, and 1060 regarding parades, special events, public assemblies, and catering permits. And we have Renata at the podium tonight.
Good evening. Yes, that's a mouthful. It has been a project of city staff for some time. We've been looking at all of the codes related to public assembly, parades, and special events in the park. So when I say we, your city staff, included the police department, fire department personnel, parks personnel, municipal services personnel, administration, and legal. So it's been quite a crew. Once we had a draft of some codes, we worked very closely with the Downtown Association, the Chamber of Commerce, and the North Idaho Trail Foundation, who provided some needed input on there and some clarification requests. So it's always helpful to have that additional eye on these things. So we presented this item to the Public Works Committee. Since the Public Works Committee meeting, staff has prepared some additional information for you. And as we go through, this will be a little more clear, that in some of the code sections, there was an opportunity for denial, but there was no appeal language. So we've added in the appeal language throughout where there was any reference to denials. Additionally, there was some question about the need for the public safety plans. And staff's intent all along was that we would have an opportunity to review large events and determine if a public safety plan was needed. So it was a little confusing in the code. It sounded like everybody would have to turn one in. So we want to propose that we would add the language that a public safety plan requirement could be waived by the police chief or his designee. So as we go through these, I have this little slide I'd like to keep up in the background so you can kind of see each chapter deals with something specifically in our municipal code. So there is 5 sections of the code that we're dealing with tonight, and it can get a little confusing when we're talking about maybe something to do with a parade, maybe having a little different requirement than a park. So I just want to leave those up in the background, and I will refer to those intermittently. So to start, we talked about Chapter 4.25. This is a section that deals specifically with parks and public property regulations. We actually added in some clarifications to the exceptions in this code, and we added a new section that sets forth an approval requirement that runs the same way as Chapter 10.60, which is parade and special events, for any event that is expected to have 1,000 people participate in it. So then when you look at Chapter 4.30, again, public property, That is, again, some additional information we put in for those events over 1,000 people expected in attendance. In chapter 5.17, we're dealing with catering permits, and those are the allowance of beer and wine off-premise from a licensed location. So most of the language in there, we are just marrying it up to what the Idaho Code changed in July of last year. There's some specific, specific language in there regarding events that are called festivals and definitions of that sort that we needed to update our language in. In addition, we are changing the requirement for a 3-day notice to a 5-day notice from those people who are pulling the catering permits. We're doing that because there's a specific clause in the Idaho Code that allows police and fire to add any sort of special conditions for those events. So we need to give some time for police and fire to review any event that's happening at a new location. And with staff discussion, we landed on 5 days being a good test run for these to see if we can make that happen. Oftentimes, 3 days is hard for some of these folks to remember to pull their permit, because it's just not something on the forefront of their mind that they need to do. So we're adding a couple more days for them to get in. We've been warning them for the last 6 months that we're going to be proposing this. And at the last police meeting with the downtown bar owners, we had some discussion about that, and they all seemed amenable to that. The next code section is chapter 5.44, which is outdoor assemblies. This is to clarify that it is regarding private property events. So when there are large events at a private property, it used to say specifically music assemblies. But we're finding out that we need to clarify it's more than just music assemblies. It's about the number of people that are involved, whether the event is flowing into the streets, whether we need to get traffic control involved, those sorts of things. So we added in some clarifications there. We clarified that the fees for these events and security will be set by resolution like all our other fees. We're trying to pull those out of municipal codes because every time you change a fee, there's a codification requirement that goes with municipal code changes. So then we get to parade and special events, chapter 10.60. We had several housekeeping amendments we needed to do in the definitions section, the exceptions section, and the applications section to bring it up into how we actually are doing business today. We also are recommending the amendment to allow 2 medium impact events, or 1 medium and 1 low event, or 2 low impact events per day, depending on staffing levels. So for years, we've had requests. I'll give an example. Last year, I think 2030 wanted to do a small block event on the same day as farmers market, because our code says if one event has already been permitted, no other events will be allowed. So even though it was a low impact, 1 block event that would flow with the farmers market, we were not able to approve that event. We've also clarified in this that block watch events would be exempted. So they still have to come in for a permit, notify us, request a street closure, but there could be as many block watch events as allowable and how many barricades we have available in any one day. So we've cleaned that up a little bit. We've had some clarifications regarding the denial of permits. And again, in this section, there's always been an appeal if there was a denial. And again, all approvals are based on the existing code. If the applicants meet the code, then they would be allowed approval. So I believe that there was one other section we'll bring forward later under fee, public hearing, and that's under the catering permits. We are requesting to approve an expedited fee. Because as of right now, if they don't meet the 5-day application, and let's just say maybe they have a big concert in the park that they were contracted to provide alcohol service for, they could pay for that expedited fee, and we could expedite the review through City Hall with, excuse me, to police and fire with that expedited fee. So that'll come back at a later date under public hearing. But that is what staff's recommending at this time, and I stand for questions.
Okay, questions for Renata? Kiki?
First of all, thank you. I just wanted to make a note, because that's fine. I have been doing events here like for 30, 35 years, either ones I've created or managed or been involved as a volunteer, as I am right now in a current event. And so my line of questioning when looking at this was a little different because I had a unique perspective on that. So I just wanted to thank staff, especially Renata and the team, for going through all of these diligent responses, and further so that council and staff knew that I did run through our legal department a question as to whether there was any conflict of interest, and they didn't find any in me talking about this particular thing with the parks and events codes. So wanted to state that.
Anyone else have questions for Renata?
I have one, just so there's no money, we're not talking about raises in permits or anything economical right now.
Correct. These are just municipal code changes.
Okay.
So any of the fee increases or changes in fee would come through a public hearing. But at this point, staff has not been directed or recommending increased fee to parade and special event fees.
Okay. And on timing, you said if somebody was denied a permit, that they could appeal it. Is the time in there for appeal? Does appeal come to council?
So most of the code sections give, they may appeal, and we have 10 days to set an appeal hearing. Right now, our municipal code throughout the wording is that it will be held in front of an appeal officer.
So that's not council then necessarily. That's how you can
Correct.
pull off 10 days if it's the wrong
Correct.
time of the month.
Right.
Okay.
Any other questions for Renata?
I have a couple. We had kind of touched on this, but I wanted to find out where, as new parks, areas come online, including possibly at East Sherman or maybe the Atlas Waterfront, how will that be addressed as to a facility that could be rented in addition to another facility in the parks and/or parade? How do they link together?
So my assumption, and if Bill Greenwood is here, I'll have him come up and
yeah.
talk specifically about the parks. So if they're public streets, it would still come in under chapter 10.60 as a parade or special event, and it would go through our current process for a street closure. And if it's a parks, then I would assume that it'll be handled through Mr. Greenwood.
So what happens is they'll come into my office and they'll talk to Melissa and we'll say, okay, you want to be in the park? And I say, yeah, but we want to have a parade too. Well, okay, there's this portion that has to do with the parks. You fill out this permit and you'll go across the hall and talk to Kelly and we'll get that portion done. We let them know at the time that depending on the size of the event, PD may get involved. And also if they're having food, we have canopies, then fire will get involved. So it's pretty much a one-stop shop from across the hall. So we have a lot of good communication within staff to allow that to just go through real quick. I mean, it doesn't, and if it's a big event, we have many of those, we do require 30 days. But smaller events, you know, we try and process those as quickly as we can if we can get them through.
Good, and we did talk briefly about this being more of a policy issue than an ordinance issue, in that how you manage that internally, which also included, if you just touch base real quick on any changes that might happen to that calendar that follows what events are where, and how the additional stakeholders that might be having other events themselves off city property can link or are involved in that process.
So are you speaking to the fact that we might have more than one event in town in a day?
That more than you could have a parade, an event in a park, and an event on private property.
Correct.
And how do we assure that this ordinance addresses assuring that there's public safety involved for all of them?
Well, that's what I think we're here to talk about, is how we're going to be able to manage that and make certain that we're not overextending staff.
Okay. So the ordinance addresses a communication with the stakeholders then?
So the ordinance doesn't specifically hold out a requirement for stakeholder involvement, but at a staff level, we have a standard operating procedure that, especially with parades and special events, when we're talking about street closures, we have a laundry list of email that goes out and says, we've received a permit for 4th of July parade, and it goes specifically to the downtown stakeholders, the Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Association, and the Coeur d'Alene Resort. So anytime we have an item in the downtown area that would inhibit entrance and exits to the resort, we actually invite them to the table when we have our, and I guess the best way to explain it is like a project review in the building department. We have all of the staff members that are reviewing the permit around the table, as well as the applicant and the stakeholders. So Terry Cooper will come to many, and usually a security officer from the resort comes to the very large parade and special event meetings. So when we know we're having one of those, we contact them and reach out to them.
And I think Kelly's having one of those for the 4th of July coming up on the 13th, tomorrow. Oh, it's this week, okay. So we all get together and chat about it.
Good. I'm sure, I'm just making sure that I was clear in whether that was a policy issue or an ordinance issue that should have been included. So I was just looking down that road. And again, I appreciate all the detail. There's a lot changing in our city, so there's a lot of things that are happening, and time to change these codes with it, so thank you.
Any other questions for Renata? If no other questions, we'd be looking for council action.
Move for the adoption of Council Bill number 18-1010.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
You probably want to dispense with a rule first.
Oh, I guess we're dispensing with the rule. Thank you for keeping us on the rules.
Thank you.
So the motion and a second to dispense the rules. Is that okay, Ron, on your motion?
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah, okay. And Kiki,
too.
that's okay with your second? Okay, so motion and a second to dispense the rules. Any discussion on that? If no discussion, we will ask the clerk to read the title.
Okay. Council Bill number 18-1010, an ordinance amending sections 4.25.100, 4.30.020, 5.17010, 5.17020, 5.17040, 5.44010, 5.44020, 5.44030, 5.44.040, 5.44.050, 5.44.060, 5.44.070, 5.44070, I guess I should say 0, not O, 5.44.100, 5.44.110, 10.60.010, 10.60020, 10.60.030, 10.60.040, 10.60.050, 10.60.060, 10.60.070, 10.60.090, 10.60.100, 10.60.120, 10.60.130, and 10.60.140 Coeur d'Alene Municipal Code. Adding new sections 4.25.105, 4.30.025, 4.30.027, 5.17.070, and 5.44.025 to the Coeur d'Alene Municipal Code. Amending the title to Chapter 4.30 Coeur d'Alene Municipal Code, amending the title of Chapter 2.60 of the Coeur d'Alene Municipal Code, providing for the repeal of other conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for the publication of a summary of the ordinance, and providing for an effective date thereof.
How important was it that you got, how important was it that you got all of that right? Okay, because you left out 5.44080, and you said something else instead of 1060. Is that a big deal, or am I just
Your
picking
clarification
nits?
is perfect.
Thank you. That was a job.
So, roll call, please.
English,
Yes.
Ettinger,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes?
McEvers,
Yes.
Kukin,
Of course.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carried. On to the next piece of business.
Now then,
More
So we need a motion on this part?
to bring it.
Sure, motion to adopt Council Bill 18-10.
Second.
Motion,
10-10.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Eddinger,
Yep.
Miller,
Yes?
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yeah.
Evans,
Yes.
English.
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Renata.
Cow.
So we're going to move on to CB-18-1011, approval of amendments to the municipal code sections.
As listed.
And there's, as listed, there's a lot of them
Say that,
regarding
Mike.
issue
Say
of
them.
beer, wine, and liquor licenses. Renata, when we get down to asking you to read the title, is it going to be about the same thing as last time?
It's a little bit shorter.
Okay, that's good. So we have Kelly Setters who's going to present this to us. Welcome, Kelly.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. As you said, I'm Kelly Setters, Deputy City Clerk. And tonight I'm seeking council approval for amendments to the municipal code sections listed in your staff report pertaining to alcohol licensing. The municipal staff has experienced several delays in issuance of alcohol beverage licenses due to the restrictive language in the code. The code requires that all changes to licenses must be approved by City Council. The simple change of ownership or transfer name change can cause a business in delay of like 2 weeks because they missed the meeting. We had 3 different businesses that were delayed in opening this year due to missing the council meeting. There is nothing in our current code that would allow staff to approve these simple ownership transfer or name changes, or even issue a temporary permit in the interim of the 14 days that they miss to get to the next council meeting. And they've already been approved by county and state permits, and they meet all the municipal codes, so they're just needing a, like basically a consent. So, in addition to the language regarding city council denial of permits, it is noted under, the denial is only noted under beer licensing. Under this proposed amendment, if the municipal code requirements have been met, then staff could issue the licenses without coming forward to council for approval. Staff would continue to provide the council a heads up with the license as they are transferred or new businesses opened. These amendments would expedite issuance of licenses to businesses that have already been approved by the state and county, and when companies just want to transfer ownership. And the financial cost is minimal. And I stand for any questions.
Questions for Kelly? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what does it mean to provide keep council in the loop with changes via a heads up? Describe to me how that process works.
A heads up is information that is put out in an email, a bulk email to everyone, the council, all the commissioners for different groups and department heads.
So, but there's
That's
nothing,
like-
there's nothing in the code
No.
that requires you to do that.
No.
So how are we
Would
kept
it
in
be,
the loop?
we would probably just change it to a policy within how we do things internally.
Okay.
Like, okay, this is your duty when a new one comes in or a transfer comes around, you have to notify council of those changes or put it on the heads up, not just council.
And why wasn't, as an alternative to this, why wasn't you just issue a temporary permit and then keep our accountability and oversight at this level, and instead have staff just authorize staff to issue a temporary permit, which I guess is what the county does?
We can do that. It wasn't in our current code, so we could change that to do like a 10-day temporary in the interim to get to the next council meeting if you'd like to do that.
Okay, but that's not what's being proposed. What's
No.
being proposed is to
No.
cut us out of the loop, except for appeals.
Correct.
So we would no longer see in our packet the beer and wine licenses.
Not in the packet, but in a heads up you would.
And the heads up, you're just promising across your heart that you would
Yes.
send those? Okay.
Absolutely.
I know that we've never denied one. I mean, it's not like we've ever gone up here and said, no, we can't do this, because it's,
Right.
basically, it's an administrative task anyway.
And they have to meet all the criteria. They still have to meet. I
Right.
mean, that's already listed in the code, so.
But I also understand that I don't want to be sitting here being a roadblock to some business because something happened and
Right.
all of a sudden they're
And
in
it
trouble.
happened 3
Yeah, I know.
times.
I'm sure it does.
This year, so,
In fact, there was a time a couple years ago that I think they called an emergency council meeting so that we could approve beer. Now, Renata's grimacing and nodding her head that we had to
And
call
we
an
were
emergency
almost there
meeting.
this
Yeah.
year, and I was like,
So-
oh, no. Like,
Don't want that to happen
so,
again.
Yes.
So I would have to say, being experienced in this business, a lot of this is because of business procrastination.
Okay.
There's a lot of time to do this. I think anyone that's been in the business a long time knows that you have to get your paperwork in on time. I hope that the changes made here aren't promoting more procrastination, because they know that, well, if I'm late, I still get another 10 days. Because what I understand here is that it says that if a license, this is in section 11, if a license has not been issued by the Department of Law Enforcement, the applicant may provide proof that an application for a license from the department has been filed, and the city clerk may grant a temporary city license. So what would be their proof? That their filled out application?
That they have the state and the county license already in place. And then we can, because a name change has to come for, any kind of change to the alcohol license has to come before you. Name change, ownership change, transfer, all of those things, so.
So then, you're not saying that they already have to have their state and their
Yes.
county in
Yes.
hand? You're not going to take it on their word, hey, I sent the check in, I just
No,
haven't gotten it back?
Absolutely not, no.
I tried that once.
Didn't work?
Didn't work.
Didn't work, okay.
I denied him.
Yeah. All right. Other questions?
Tried them all, right?
Other questions for Kelly?
Well, I would just comment that I think this is a very routine function that I feel very good about trusting to the staff to do. And out of all the things that should come before council, I certainly don't think that this has to be one. I mean, yeah, let us know. But since it's already, they've gone through the other hoops, like I think I said, maybe at the committee meeting, I mean, this is just good customer service, and I'm kind of amazed that it's gone on this long without letting the staff just do the job of staff, so.
Kiki, do you share?
I just wanted to clarify, when you said if they have their state and their county license, the city can't deny their license anyway.
Correct.
So I kind of feel like it's holding up them being able to move forward
Correct.
for housekeeping purposes to hit a meeting, and that's
And
really.
most businesses don't, like new people that are going into business don't know what's required. They know they have to get a state, and I had a gentleman today that's opening a wine bar down here downtown, and he said, oh, I have to get a county license? And I'm like, yeah. And
They don't have to wait for 2 weeks for it
Right.
to be approved at the county.
No, it's over the counter.
It's over the counter. So that's what we're trying to shore up, is that 2 weeks.
And as long as they have the state and county, you know, I feel and they meet our requirements, I think.
I have another question.
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay.
So I tried, and Renata might know the answer to this one as well, because it's going to be nerdy. But I tried to look up in the statutes to see where the authority was granted for cities and counties to give a liquor license, and I found it. It's in there. There's a whole title in Idaho code that deals with alcohol, which is great. But it doesn't really say in there, if I'm correct, that it has to be approved by elected body. It's basically just that it authorizes cities and counties to issue a liquor license. So there's really nothing that in the process that requires us to approve it at the council level. Okay, so I'm correct with that. Thank you.
Further questions for Kelly? If not, we would be looking for first a motion to dispense with the rules.
I would make a motion to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill 181011 once by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Renata, if you could read that title, please.
I'll try and be better this time. Council Bill number 18-1011, an ordinance amending sections 5.08.020, 5.08.050, 5.08.060, 5.08.070, 5.08.100, 5.08.160A6 and 7, 5.12040, 5.12050, 5.12055, 5.16020, 5.16050, and 5.15.060, the Coeur d'Alene Municipal Code, to authorize the city clerk to issue beer, wine, and liquor licenses, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, providing for the publication of a summary of the ordinance, and providing for an effective date thereof.
Roll call, please.
Miller,
Yes?
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yeah.
Evans,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Eddinger.
Motion carried. We looking for action on the next part?
Now I'll make a motion to adopt Council Bill 181011.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Woody?
I just wanted to point out that if you're at home, you could read along with Renata because they have all the codes underneath you on the TV monitor. So, something to look forward to this week, right?
You'd have to be on the right channel, though.
Oh, yeah, 1301.
1301, there you go.
Got it.
1301.10.160.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Roll call again, please, Renata.
Miller,
Yes.
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Aye.
Evans,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Eddinger.
Motion carried. Thank you, Kelly. We will move on now to other business. We have CB 18-1012, de-annexation of property from city boundary, known as a portion of the Sheefoot plat, tracks A and B, and the associated portion of Nettleton Gulch Road that was annexed with the original request. Sean is here tonight.
All right, thank you, Mayor and City Council. I want to take a quick second here and speak about 1301. I think that's getting up there in the HD channels, so I'm sorry to everyone at home that they get to look at my balding head in high definition. On the flip side of that coin, they get to see Mr. McEvers, Councilman McEvers' beautiful mane. So, with that, the request coming forward is City Council must decide whether or not to allow de-annexation to exclude a portion of property in city limits. It's 0.232 acres, including a small portion of the right-of-way associated with Nettleton Gulch in that area. This should be pretty quick. This map right here shows the original request for annexation, which is the Sheefoot property. And that little yellow portion right down here is the request to de-annex. This is the tiny bit of Nettleton Gulch Road that was annexed along with that. State requires that you annex in the right-of-way. At the time this was annexed, we were only annexing half of a right-of-way so that you could get contiguousness in the future. So very small parcels split in half. There is a water line that has since been abandoned that ran through this property. The request stems from this member right here, Mr. Randall Smith, who is here tonight. He wants to include this into the county so that he can have that parcel as a whole so he can build a garage in the future, because on this side of the property, the ground rises up quite a bit. So there's it rises up a decent amount. So he's trying to push the garage closer to where the de-annexation request is. So that's largely the request. It's a very small piece of property. And if there's any questions, staff will stand for them.
Wood?
So that piece is split between all four pieces? Is that the way it goes?
It is,
Everybody gets half?
although there is a single owner of each of these parcels, so there's one owner here, and then the split down the center, half of that would go to this property, the other half would go to the applicant.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sean on this? Dan?
Well, just, so if we de-annex this, will all of the area around it be city? I mean, is this going to be one little postage stamp that now is back in the county?
No, as you can see right here, this dark black line is the existing city limits.
Oh.
So the city limits will drop down. There is a large, what we call the Swiss cheese holes in city limits. So this large one would just grow by this tiny little sliver that was used for water extension and gas extension.
Any other questions for Sean? If no other questions, we'd be looking for, first again, a motion to dispense with the rules.
I'll move to dispense with the rules and read Council Bill 18-1012 by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Renata, if you could read the title, please.
Council Bill 18-1012, an ordinance excluding from and declaring the same to be separate from the city of Coeur d'Alene, Kootenai County, Idaho, specifically described as tracts A and B of the plat of Shefoot, together with a portion of Section 6, Township 50 North, Range 3 West, Boise Meridian, repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing a severability.
Roll call, please.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yeah.
Evans?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Miller?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Move
To
to,
adopt Council Bill number 18-1012.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
McEvers?
yes.
Gookin?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Miller?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Sean. We'll move on to resolution number 18-032. You've been looking forward to this one, haven't you, Woody?
I've been waiting for this for like ever.
Award of skate park project bid and approval of contract with Evergreen Skate Parks LLC. Monty's here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So as you know, we demolished our skate park last year to make room for the remodel of Memorial Park. And the new location for the skate park is in the same park. It's just a few hundred feet to the north, closer to Northwest Boulevard. Bigger area. It's going to be a nice, beautiful, big park that provides for skaters of all skill levels and ages. So we went out to bid on April 2nd, and we received one bid from Evergreen Skate Parks. The original estimate to rebuild the park that we had gotten was around $400,000. And the bid came in at $356,500. So we had quite a bit of savings there. So we proposed that Ignite was going to pay for a good portion of that, about $350,000, but we proposed that they pay $331,500, and that the city Parks Capital Improvement Fund would pay $25,000 for the grand total of $356,500.
Okay, great. Any questions for Monty? We sure like the way your bid process comes in. We enjoy that. Good job on that one. So any questions on that? So if there aren't any other questions, we'd be looking for council action. What do you want to check?
We're waiting for you.
I move to approve Resolution 18032, approval of contract with Evergreen Skate Parks LLC.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just a question, when is it going to be in? When are we going to see this?
They're scheduled to begin work the week of June 18th.
Wow.
And they'll have until September.
Okay, cool.
Woody?
Oh, there is a little get-together tomorrow night at 6 o'clock down at the new place. We're going to kind of walk around and talk about it and kick boulders and throw some dirt around and just be happy. So please come down if you're interested.
There's a couple of bridges you can walk on down there.
Yeah.
Walk around and be happy.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
Gookin?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Monty. Appreciate it. Now we'll move into our public hearings. And the first hearing is a quasi-judicial hearing, and this is appeal of a denial of a street tree removal by Jeff Wolhart, 509 East Garden Avenue. The rules to this appeal process are just a little different than the normal quasi-judicial. There's still a sign-up sheet, but we will start off with the appealing person. They will have 10 minutes. During that appeal process, they will have an opportunity to bring up others that they want to speak during that 10-minute time. There is a sign-up sheet in back, too, for anyone, oh, I've got it right here, that would wish to speak. So we will have Jeff. Jeff is here, so come on up. And you'll need to get sworn in, correct, Renata?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, so sorry, I'm not like akin to this process, but basically I'm here because I had my wife and I decided that we wanted to have some off-street parking to park our cars because of parking issues downtown, and well, we were having the driveway and the approach built. The contractor that we hired to do that, I pointed out the fact that if he were to put the new sidewalk where the approach is at the proper grade, it wouldn't line up with the rest of the sidewalk because one of the trees is pushing the sidewalk up, so much so that there would be a large gap. So he asked me what to do, and that's when I submitted a request to have the tree that we're referring to right now removed so that the sidewalk could be properly sloped and fixed according to ADA rules and all that. And so I made my request to the tree committee, and that request was denied. And the reason why I'm here to ask that it be appealed or accepted or
Denial overturned.
Denial of the denial, or however you want to call it, is that in order to, well, I'm only speaking from what the contractor explained to me, but in order to fix the sidewalk in a way that wouldn't harm the tree and cause it to die, the sidewalk would have to be raised at such an amount that it would raise the level of the sidewalk above the front of the front lawn of my house, which would have to be regraded. The sidewalk would then continue and be higher than my front walkway, so I'd have to have the front walkway removed and replaced. And then they explained to me also that they wouldn't do the work because they couldn't guarantee the work because of the way it would have to be done in order to save the tree. And I did quite an extensive amount of research to try to figure out how old the tree was, to figure out whether or not it made a whole lot of sense to save the tree, because what I didn't really want to do is, well, for one, I didn't want to spend all that money to do all of that work to regrade my front lawn, to fix the sidewalk and replace the front walkway. But beyond that, I didn't want to do all of that in vain and have the tree die, 5-10 years down the road. So in doing the research, I discovered there's several ways in order to determine whether a tree, or what the age of a tree is. One of them, well, the most obvious one would be cut it down and count the lines, but obviously can't do that. So the least destructive way to do that would be to look at the circumference of the tree, and then there's some calculation based on how fast the particular species of tree grows. And I calculated that the tree was around 84 years old. And then I did more research and discovered that a tree of this species only tends to live to be 60 or 70 years old in an urban environment. And then I did some other research and looked at other kinds of signs that the tree is aging. One of them is tree suckers, which the tree has all over its branches, and so it seems to me that the tree is at or near its life expectancy. I know that I had a little talk about it with Katie, and she explained that other signs would be that some of the branches would be dying and things of this nature. Unfortunately, in 2016, I had the tree pruned, so all of the dead branches were removed in 2016. So unless branches died from 2016 till now, there wouldn't be any. Yeah, and another indication, I think, I don't know if you guys got all the documentation I sent, but another indication for that particular species of tree is the production of the seed pods, because it's a honey locust, they produce seed pods annually, but this tree hasn't produced any seed pods for, well, since we own the house, which would have been 2 seasons. And that usually happens at the age of 100 years old, so. Yeah, and my big concern is that, the tree gets, like I said, I replace all of that, I spend all that money, and then, 5, 10 years down the road, the tree dies, I have to have the tree cut down, roots removed, replace the sidewalk once again. And so what I'd really propose is to have the tree removed, find a reasonable equivalent tree to replace it, a new one, and fix the sidewalk properly, and then I feel like everybody could be happy. Whenever it's appropriate, my neighbor would like to say something.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is give council opportunity right now to ask you questions, and then we can have the other folks come up too. So is any other questions right at this time? Woody?
So did you, when you did the approach for off-street parking, you took out a tree?
Yeah.
Did you replace that tree?
No, there wasn't enough space to replace it, because what we have is we have an approach, and then there's a short amount of grass, and then there's like a little walkway sidewalk from the street, and then after that there's the other tree.
Okay.
Any other questions at this time? All right, thank you. We'll have the other folks come up now. We have Larry Marble wishes to come up and testify.
Actually, aren't we supposed to have Katie go next?
No, according to this, Renata, he has people come up during his time.
Yeah, this would be like public comment equivalent. So it would be part of the appellant, then it would go to staff, and then additional public comment if there is some.
Yeah. All right. And,
I'd still have to swear him in, though.
yeah, she'll swear you in.
I need to swear you in, so if you would confirm after my statement here. Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. I represent the owner of the property next door, my mother, at 501 East Garden. We're on the corner of Garden and 5th.
Excuse me for just a second. Renata, did you get the name for the record?
Yes, I believe it's Larry Marble.
Larry
Yes.
Marble. Okay, all right, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The tree in question that Mr. Willard's discussing, it's very large, nice tree. But when the arborist was out, there's a huge, huge branch that was estimated at 10 to 12,000 pounds that hangs out over our apartment house. I'm really concerned that someday when the tree ages to the point where there's a failure, if this branch falls on the apartment house, it's going to be on the front page of the Coeur d'Alene Press. It could seriously injure our tenants that live there, not to mention the catastrophic damage to the building itself. Mr. Willard would like to remove the tree, and he'd love to plant a tree that the city council would approve in place of it. And I would just encourage and wish that you guys would change your position on the denial of his request. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And then I had one more person on the list. I can't quite read this. Must be, you're okay, okay. All right. So now we will bring up Katie Kusenke for the staff portion.
Oops.
Do you swear in staff too? Renata, I forget.
No, but I can.
They're always sworn in, I think.
Yes, sure, why not?
We'll keep
Start a
it even.
precedent.
Keep it fair.
Confirm upon my completion of this statement. Do you swear that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Mayor, City Council, thank you. I want to just go over a little bit about the removal request process. The ordinance requires Urban Forestry Committee members to inspect tree removal permit requests and make recommendations regarding removal of public trees. The city's tree inspection form prompts inspectors to evaluate the tree health, condition, site, and nuisance factors. Ability to mitigate the concerns is also considered. Tree benefits are also taken into account, such as environmental benefits, wildlife values, and contributions to the streetscape, neighborhood, and overall urban forest. And there were 6 Urban Forestry Committee members that inspected this tree, and all recommended retention. A little bit about the tree location and the site history. It's at 509 East Garden Avenue, and the abutting property owner requested removal of the honey locust tree within the right-of-way between the curb and the sidewalk. Previously, the Urban Forestry Committee did approve removal of the easternmost tree in conjunction with the installation of a driveway going in right at that same location. So that was approved, and that tree was removed just this past February. In 2016, both trees were routine pruned. The notes reflect from then that the trees were in good condition, but needed some routine pruning of some minor deadwood in the crown. At that time, they were also allowed to prune back some overextending branches that were going toward the houses as well. When the tree service pruned that tree at that time, I had a copy of the estimate, and they commented that the trees were beautiful. The location is within the Garden District, known for tree-lined streets, and in the comprehensive plan, this area is identified as the Historical Heart Neighborhood, and recommendations are listed to increase the numbers of and retain existing trees. The reasons cited for removal include the sidewalk conflicts, leaf litter, and the mention that the tree may be near the end of its life expectancy. The committee did inspect the tree and considered all of these items. They found the tree to be in good condition and recommended mitigation of the site conflicts. They recommended working with the Streets and Engineering Department to make deviations to the sidewalk when it's repaired in order to preserve the tree. And as you can see in this picture, there's a slight lift that has been temporarily patched over, but the main issue is really that the entire sidewalk is kind of tilted going toward the north. I did meet with the engineering staff on site to discuss ways that the tree can be worked around. There's a lot of different options and deviations that are allowable. There likely will be very little root loss that would impact the health of the tree, and there's also options that will prevent root loss entirely. In regards to the leaf litter and nuisance issues, cleaning up leaves is kind of a part of, living with trees within our community. And, people throughout Coeur d'Alene perform, the activities so that everyone can kind of reap the positive benefits that trees provide in our community, such as mitigating stormwater, reducing pollution, and also just the great aesthetic values as well. And this has been in the Garden Avenue scenery for some time. With the leaf litter issues, perhaps there's a gutter that is designed for areas, landscapes that have trees that would work for this home. In regard to the lifespan of the tree's in good condition and not showing any signs that it's in decline or nearing the end of its life expectancy. The committee thought the tree was much younger than the stated 84 years old. However, they didn't feel that taking a core sample or really looking into that real further would be necessary, because trees that are nearing the end of their lifespan will decline for a lot of years, have significant dieback, more than just the routine, pruning here and there, have cavities and defects, that sort of thing. I found some research that honey locusts can live up to 150 years. However, typically it is much less in urban settings, just because there are a lot of stresses on urban trees. In regards to the seed pods, it not producing seed pods, there are seedless cultivars. I suspect it's a seedless cultivar. We thought we planted a seedless cultivar out here. It's a fairly large honey locust as well, but it's not seedless, so that one has some messy seed pods in the fall. The committee members are sympathetic regarding the issues about this tree. However, they didn't feel that there are sufficient reasons to remove an otherwise healthy tree from the public right-of-way considered a public asset. As a certified arborist, municipal specialist, and a tree risk assessor, I also concur with their findings. And that's all I have.
Okay, all right. So questions, Wood?
So when we pay for the pruning?
So we do have a cost share program available. Abutting property owners are responsible for the care and maintenance of the trees within the public right-of-way, but we do have the cost share program that can assist with the pruning. Because they had the cost share pruning assist with the pruning in just 2016, and then also the removal this past February, I think they've hit the max for a 36-month time period. So if they wanted to do additional pruning, I don't see that there's additional pruning needed, but if they wanted to, they could. But the cost share program would not be available because they've already used up the limit.
So the last time he had it pruned, he used up the limit on the cost share.
Between the pruning and then the approved removal, between those two things, the funds were used.
And then sidewalk repair, does the owner pay for that, or is there a cost sharing there?
It's my understanding there's also a cost share program as well. I know that when we had met on site, Shane had mentioned there's an application for that can help.
I love trees and I love you and everything, but this, it's a city tree, but you're responsible for it, and you have to pay to have it pruned, and you have to take care of it, and then I want to take it down and put in another tree, and sorry, we like the tree, we don't want you to do it. It's just, it sort of feels like a catch-22. And again, it's nothing against trees or you guys, it's just this. And then the right-of-way looks so small there where that tree, it looks like it's just been squeezed, or the street got wider and the lot are those 50-foot lots there? They look pretty narrow. Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Old part of town, right?
55.
Yeah, I just, again, you kind of get caught in this thing, and it's like, if you're the property owner and you don't have a tree, they don't make you put in a tree, but if you have a tree, it's protected. And I get what you guys do, but it would be nice if there are trees, we should take care of them, period, but it doesn't quite work that way.
I would be in favor of a tree crew, and we could take care of all of it, but I think that would cost something.
Well, once cost sharing gets that expensive, I'm sure we will, right?
Yeah.
So that wasn't really a question, I'm sorry, guys, it was just a rant.
Sounds like a budget amendment.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Katie, is this tree on the approved street tree list, honey locust?
It is.
Okay. So it's not, it's something that they could plant another one without seeds.
Yes. These are the trees that are planted all along Sherman, are honey locusts as well.
Oh, wonderful.
To give you.
So looking at the tree there in that picture on the right, the bifurcation, is that considered healthy?
So the tree wasn't fully leafed out at this point, but I think it's leafed out. I mean, there's no apparent dieback or anything.
I'm talking about the fact that it looks like a giant slingshot.
Oh.
Is that normal for a tree?
So it does have two codominant trunks. However, there isn't any indication of any stress at the connection between the two. It's more of a U-shaped connection versus a type V, which is a much stronger connection. And also when the tree was pruned, they had reduced a lot of the weight on the codominant stem that's going toward the house. So that kind of takes some of the weight off of, we call it like a lever arm when you have the two codominant stems.
Generally speaking, though, when you want to have a happy tree, you don't want to see that. Is that true?
Well, there's different form of trees. For example, there's X-current, which is like a pine tree, one nice top. And then there's D-current growing trees like maples and honey locusts that have multiple leaders and wide spreading. And we try to, through pruning, you can encourage better structure. So when it was young, it probably could have been trained a little bit better to have a more central leader, but I wouldn't say it's...
Okay, so the tree has bad training. I'm writing
Right.
that down.
They said that about me.
Formative pruning when trees are young
Good, we'll run for
is
council.
very important
The one that was removed, why was it removed?
for the installation of the driveway.
So there was nothing wrong with it?
No,
I mean,
same
you
type
just-
of tree, same size. If we really wanted to figure out the age, I suppose we could find that tree someplace, but I don't think that that is really
So that was,
necessary.
but you approved that?
Right, because we didn't want to limit them access to their own property or deny them the ability to have a driveway at their own house.
Okay. Did that decision in any way affect the decision for this tree?
No.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions for Katie? Kiki?
Thanks, Katie. Will you kind of clarify, it sounds like to me that the applicant feels like that there's an engineering mandate that he doesn't feel or his contractors feel can be met to save this tree regarding the sidewalk. But you've said that's not the case?
When we met with the engineer on site there, or the sidewalk inspector, he had lots of different suggestions of what could be done. In the world of tree, root, and sidewalk conflicts, this is fairly minor, and there's very little lift, but there is that tilting, so it does need to be raised up on the back side of the sidewalk.
So your engineers and those contractors that you met with feel that it could be mitigated without tearing out the whole front yard and all the sidewalk?
When we scheduled the on-site meeting, it was myself, the sidewalk inspector, and the homeowner. The contractor didn't meet on site, but I'm sure that they could arrange to have an on-site meeting with them as well to explain.
New ideas. And then, just real briefly, the people who inspect and made the decision on this tree, can you speak to the resumes that those folks have? Are they the committee members? Just briefly, what their expertise might be.
Yeah, we have a couple of certified arborists that are on the committee. We have a retired forest pathologist, PhD. We have a entomologist, so we have the insect and disease side, which are wonderful resources. And then we have other forestry background type folks.
And so they felt that the discussion regarding age wasn't necessary based on their review of the tree and their expertise, and that's why they didn't get into that discussion?
Right. Yeah, typically it's not a standard to go up to a tree and say, okay, how old is it? How much time does it have left? It's, when a tree is in decline, it's pretty apparent for a long period of time.
Okay.
Any further questions for Katie? Ron?
Yeah, Katie, like the one gentleman that got up here and spoke, if the tree or a branch or whatever would fall on his property, who's liable for that?
That might be a question for legal, but the abutting property owner is responsible for the care and maintenance of the tree. But they've done everything to have the tree pruned. There's no reason to think that it would fail as far as like being negligent. It's difficult to determine what a storm will do, Luckily, the November 17th, 2015 storm is, they're calling a 30-year storm, so hopefully, you know, we're not going to be seeing a lot of those, but I think it's one of those act of God things.
I actually know the answer to that one, Mr. Mayor. In the 2006 windstorm, one of my neighbor's spruces crossed the property line and crashed into my house. And the law is that once the tree decides to cross your property line, it's your tree.
Once a tree crosses your line?
It's yours. And Mr. Gridley could probably confirm that.
Yeah, I think under the storm or act of God situation, it would be your own homeowner's insurance that would typically take care of it if it hits your property. Absent some great knowledge that the tree is diseased and imminently leaning and about ready to fall, then you might have some responsibility for dealing with it.
Now, is that a state law or a city law?
I think it's just insurance, that how the insurance pays it out.
Right, that would just be general common law, negligence law, basically.
Jesus.
But legally speaking, though, I mean, if we're gonna go down this road, legally speaking, because Larry already mentioned that the tree is hanging over his property, if it did fall because he's already pointed it out, then he would be covered, right? I mean, that's kind of like what you're talking about. If you're aware that the tree potentially could be hazardous and you point it out, that's the CYA.
No, I'm saying if the limb was diseased or the tree was diseased to a point where you could say that it's an imminent threat of falling, then that's one case. But if it's just a healthy tree and it grows over across your property,
it's not a problem.
Until God intervenes and knocks it down, it's not a problem.
And the pastor's already left, so we can't ask about God. Right.
So any other questions right now for Katie? All right, thank you very much. Mr. Wohlhart, I'm going to ask if there's any other folks that want to testify on this issue, and then I'll bring you up at the end.
I just got a question for Katie.
Okay. Yeah, come on up. Yeah, come on up.
No, my question was, when you say that it will show signs of decline for a long period of time, long is not it's not, what do you call it, objective, so what do you mean by long? Like a year could be long, or 10 years, or 100 years, I don't know.
Yeah, well, since trees are living things, it's hard to predict. These trees don't have a whole lot of insect or disease issues, so that's a good thing. But I wouldn't expect this tree to be in decline for many, many more years. I mean, I would say at least 20, but it could be longer than that. It's in great condition and hasn't shown any signs of decline at all.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Yeah, you can come on. You can come on. Go ahead.
For Katie, if
Okay.
you don't mind.
Step up to the microphone. Up to the microphone, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. So then, I do have a question about the tree suckers that are up on almost every branch. From what I read, that is either a sign of old age, disease, or stress. So did you notice the tree suckers? I imagine they weren't probably growing by the time you guys had inspected the tree, but I'm not sure if you saw the picture that I provided or whatever. But anyway, do you know what tree suckers are and whether that is correct, or I mean I don't know, I'm not an expert at trees, but
So, trees will put out suckers for numerous reasons. Sometimes pruning can trigger them. It's basically a little bit of stress, the tree trying to put out more foliage. There's some species that sucker no matter what, like crab apples and plums and things. But when you see suckers that you have dieback, and basically all that's left are, we call them adventitious sprouts or suckers coming off all of the limbs and not a whole lot else, that can definitely be a sign of decline, but that was not observed here. There may be some suckers on the branches in places, or specifically places where it was pruned, but nothing to indicate that the suckers are indicating it's in decline.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mr. Wolholt, you'll have, if you want to come up, if you have anything else to add, you'll have an opportunity to close the testimony. All right, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
Yeah.
Come on up.
Sure. Oh, I didn't know what you meant now. Or,
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so the last thing I just want to say is the whole kind of situation is kind of frustrating. As Mr. Edinger pointed out that, you know, I have a large concern about not just the repair of the sidewalk and doing that properly and the cost, but also, you know, there is a large branch hanging over my master bedroom window that if it falls, I mean, the tree may be in great health, but I don't know if that's entirely true. The tree suckers that, I mean, I can see it right out my window. They're all up and down all of those branches, and I really don't want to be liable for having anyone else be harmed by the tree or the sidewalk being out of whack, and I also don't want to personally be harmed by it. And the process is kind of frustrating because I have to pay for all these repairs, and then if the tree does in fact die and then I have to have the tree cut down, then the tree roots will rot and crack the sidewalk that I had just whenever recently replaced. So it's kind of a frustrating thing because the cost share program is, it's a great thing, but it's nowhere near what it costs to have the maintenance done and the sidewalk repair. It's not even close. So it's just kind of frustrating. It's gonna, if I fix it, if I fix the sidewalk and the front walkway to repair, to leave the tree in place, if I can find a contractor to do it, I explained to the contractor the constraints because I actually hired an arborist to look at the tree and tell me what it can and can't do to the sidewalk that's up against it, because I didn't want to kill it in place because that would be worse than anything. And that arborist told me that within the drip line, I can't prune any roots at all. So that means that the way that the sidewalk is sloping now, it has to like kind of basically flip and then have that, like, whatever. I think there was a picture in that appeal document that showed that would be like 6 or 7 inches above grade of the front grass, which ironically, I think if I regrade my front grass, I'm probably going to kill the tree, because whenever I try to aerate, I hit the root anyway. Not intentionally, but and then to see and then to be in this situation and then see the utility companies clear cut trees for the purposes of avoiding the power lines is quite frustrating.
All right, thank you very much. At this time, I will close the public testimony portion of it, and we will look for council action. Wood?
I would like to make a motion to approve the appeal of the Urban Forestry Committee denial of the tree removal at 509 East Garden.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the appeal. Do we have a second?
What does that mean? That means he can take out the tree?
Yes.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion, please. Woody?
Well, since my neck is out there, I agree with you on a lot of the things, and again, we have a great respect for trees in the whole community. To jump through all the hoops to try and make things better is a little frustrating. We plant hundreds of trees every year. We're constantly planting and replacing, and we have rules to say, you know, we want it to be trees, and we want you to rake your leaves into the street because we pick them up. That's pretty cool. But your points about, you know, a tree leaning over in front of your house is a little scary if I had to look out the window and see that. Katie and those guys, they're the best. They take care of our trees everywhere. I mean, the parks are always changing. So I'm supporting it just because you put in a nice new tree and you make it all perfect and you start over another 100 years from now, it'll be awesome. But that's why I just think it's the right thing to do. You know, we don't see this very often. I think I can't remember the last time that somebody wants to take out a tree and we go, no, you can't take out your tree. But, so that's where I'm at.
All right, thanks, Wood. Dan?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, yeah, so I love trees too, and I plant a lot of trees on my property, a ton of trees, lots of leaves then. But I was looking at this, and the interesting thing is, so Sean at Grace is also my arborist. And he actually advised me to keep a tree that another arborist told me to take out. So I think it's always going to be a matter of opinion when it comes to trees. This thing looks old, and I got to tell you, it's ugly. I mean, it's not a pretty tree. I know that this was before all the leaves came in, but the fact that it's split, I've always heard, is one of the reasons that you say this tree's not as good as it could have been. And I think the homeowner, Jeff is looking to plant something else. You mentioned that on your own. I was going to ask you that. And also, I think his intent here is to improve his property, which is going to add value to the neighborhood. And if that's the thing hanging in the way, then let's go ahead and side with him, get rid of it, and he'll plant something nice and take care of it, like he's planning on taking care of his property, and everyone wins, except the tree.
Dan English.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm going to take the different side of this. I do appreciate it's kind of a tough issue, and I can see both sides. And actually, I'm very familiar. We lived for years and years at 9th and Garden, about 2 blocks one way, or at 6th and Foster, about 2 blocks the other way. So, I'm tuned into downtown, and the trees, dealt with them, lifting up the sidewalk, having to do things, and got the benefit of living downtown with trees, and that, there were some trade-offs with all of that. And I drove, went by there on the way to the meeting, and I guess beauty of the tree is in the eye of the beholder. It certainly looked nice to me, but I guess from an objective point of view, too, I look at, okay, we have a group of, numerous people who have expertise in this field, and yes, you can hire an expert, witness that might come up with one or the other, but it sounds like they had a strong consensus of that. I trust their opinion that it's, healthy and probably has a pretty good lifespan in terms of, a tree branch might be hanging over something and in the right windstorm could fall down. I mean, half the houses in town are probably at risk of a branch sometime falling down. So, I do appreciate it. And yeah, there is some, cost to it, but I guess I say see that there's benefit, and especially if they allowed another tree to be taken out for the driveway, I guess I feel like, well, that's trying to meet halfway. So anyway, I'll be voting the other side of it for those reasons.
Other discussion by council? Anyone have anything else? So Renata, roll
Do you
call.
want to say something?
Oh,
I'm sorry, I thought Ron had said something. Okay.
roll call, please, Renata.
Evans?
No.
English?
To deny, no.
Eddinger?
Can you clarify the motion, please?
Sorry. The motion was to approve the appeal of the Urban Forestry Committee's denial.
Which would allow the property owner to remove the tree.
So yes means you want to chop the tree down, no means you don't.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Eddinger?
No.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Kukin?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you for all involved there. We will move on to a legislative hearing, franchise agreement with Mobilite, and the staff report is Mike Gridley. Troy, do we have, is there a sign-up sheet?
There is a sign-up sheet, and we've generated no interest in this item, apparently.
Is that because you're carrying it? Is that?
I guess this is one of those 33-page mundane and boring things that we do from time to time that gives a company the right to use our right-of-way. So basically, Mobility, which is a telecommunications company, has come in and said, we would like to use the city right-of-way to install cable and poles and things that will be used in telecommunications system. They pay a 5% fee to us of their gross revenue. We routinely issue these approved franchise agreements for other entities to use the right-of-way. So the recommendation would be to approve it. This is a public hearing. This was before you 30 days ago to consider and then set the public hearing. Now this is a public hearing. So if you have any questions, be glad to answer. It's a 10-year franchise.
Questions for Mike? No questions? Troy, no signatures on the
No, here's
sheet? Okay. So if there aren't any other questions, we'd be looking for council action.
Should we have to open it up for public comment, or did you already do that?
There's no one on the
Okay.
list, so we could open it up for public comment. Anyone wishing to comment on this issue? Oh, come on up, I'm sorry. We'll have to get your name on the, Renata, you have the list there?
That's all right. You want me to sign that now?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll do it. Sorry I didn't sign it, but do I need to be sworn in, or? Okay. Yeah, my name is Stephen Burke. I've lived in Coeur d'Alene or Kootenai County for the last 35 years. I work for Mobility. Mobility, been with them for about 3 years now. And Mobility is one of the largest providers of infrastructure in telecommunications. They don't own bandwidth. They don't deal with customers. They just provide the bandwidth. And in this particular jurisdiction, in the city of Coeur d'Alene, Sprint is the one who's going to be sending out the signal over the airwaves to the consumers. Mobility has agreements in place with Avista, CenturyLink, Frontier, and some other utility companies throughout the state of Idaho and Washington. And we're only looking right now at one site located over on Ironwood Drive and Ironwood Parkway. And what we're doing is we're utilizing utility infrastructure that's already in place. And in this particular place, on Ironwood Drive and Ironwood Parkway, there's a metal luminaire streetlight. And that streetlight's going to be replaced. The luminaire is going to be reattached. And we will put a canister on the top of the pole that'll extend the pole about 7 feet. And it'll be painted the same color, so it'll just be like a pole that's going up another 7 feet. And it's very stealth. I put in about 25 of these in the city of Spokane. We're probably going to build another 15 of them this summer in the city of Spokane. I have some applications already on file with Spokane Valley. We have franchise agreements with both Spokane Valley and the city of Spokane. And the primary purpose of this technology is to transport data. Everybody remembers when cell phones came out, we had these flip phones, and it was really great that you could talk on the phone and do a little texting. But this is what we call small cell technology, and its purpose is to transport data over the airwaves. So you want to stream movies, music, social media, texting. This is going to be the primary purpose of this equipment, is going to be to transport data over the airwaves. You know, everybody has these smartphones now, and you know, you walk around town, everybody has their head down, you know, and they're bumping into people on the sidewalks because they're using their smartphones.
So this is going to be the latest, greatest technology. You know, it's equipped for 4G. It'll be 5G ready. And we think that this is just a great opportunity for the city of Coeur d'Alene to be connected with this new technology. When I wanted to thank Mike for his patience. I think we started this a couple of years ago, and we started and stopped and started and stopped as we kind of reprogrammed our project. And appreciate Mike's patience on that and getting this to this point where we're at today. So I just hope you approve the franchise agreement, and you know, Elaine be connected with some of the other communities and help service the people. This is really consumer driven. You know, we're not here because we just want to put up equipment. It's the community that wants this kind of technology, and so we're here to support that. Thank you.
What do you have?
I have a question for you, Steve. So you guys don't produce a product, you build a thing, and you don't
We
have...
are not registered with the FCC. We don't have license. We don't own spectrum. We don't own bandwidth.
So how do we get our 5% of what? So I'm thinking about revenue on our side. That's what right-of-ways usually do. They
Yeah, well, you do
produce
it
a
through
revenue.
mobility.
What's that?
Through mobility. Aren't they going to pay you through the franchise agreement?
Right. But you don't...
So I think what Mobility does is they turn around and lease the equipment to Sprint, for example. Sprint will derive revenue from their customers. That revenue will be passed on, or 5% of that will be passed on to us. So 5% of any revenue generated by a company using Mobility's franchise agreement equipment will be passed on to us.
So
I
Sprint...
don't think it's going to rock your world. It's not going to be a huge
Not going to
number.
buy a position or anything, huh?
Right.
So Sprint pays us to use the right-of-way, and we get 5% from them, and now we get 5% more from, no.
Now, would be a procedure for auditing what Sprint pays, so the revenue that Mobility gets from Sprint or anybody else, we would get 5% of that.
So everybody understands that, right? Sorry.
Well,
Thanks, Steve.
let me see if I can rephrase
That's
it.
okay.
So any revenue Mobility generates from leasing in the city of Coeur d'Alene their equipment, we would get 5% of that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Any other questions from council? Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to give public testimony on this topic? If not, now we will close the public testimony portion of it and look for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to dispense with the rule and read Council Bill number 18-1013 once by title only.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion on that? Renata, if you could read the title, please.
Council Bill 18-1013, an ordinance of the City of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, granting a non-exclusive franchise to Mobilite LLC to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications system with all necessary facilities within the city limits of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, setting forth provisions, terms, and conditions accompanying the grant of this franchise, providing for city regulation of construction, operation, maintenance, and use of the telecommunications system, prescribing penalties for the violation of its provisions, and setting an effective date.
Roll call, please.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yeah.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Yeah.
Evans?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Move to adopt Council Bill 18-1013.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Aye.
Evans?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Mike. Now we will move on to another legislative hearing. This is the CDBG, Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, Dan, which is called what?
No?
Caper.
I was reading numbers. I'm sorry, my brain was not engaged.
The Caper Plan 2017 and updated plan year 2018 action plan, and Michelle Cushing is here to give that report to us.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. So yes, thank you, Mayor. The Caper is has a lovely title, doesn't it? Scintillating. So tonight I'm going to present these two items for you. The Caper is commonly known to us as the end of year report, and you see the annual action plan again on the agenda here. But you actually approved the annual action plan. Now we have a revised budget for your review tonight. So there's two different things going on. So for the viewing audience who may not be familiar with the city's Community Development Block Grant, I'll provide a brief overview of some of the things that it does for our community. This is a grant that the city applied for and received from the Housing and Urban Development Agency. Allowable activities can include supporting LMI housing, public facility improvement, neighborhood revitalization, and funding public service projects. The city first became eligible to receive funds in 2007 and has had 2 successful 5-year plans to date totaling almost $3 million in allocation, with nearly $25 million in leveraged funds. And when I say leverage, I mean that the city's CDBG dollars have been used in collaboration with larger partners to complete bigger projects than the city's own CDBG funds could have accomplished. Notable projects have included new infrastructure and land acquisition for LMI housing, public facility rehabilitation to women's shelters, and helping support the purchase of the Help Center. Now, one key term that you'll hear me repeat every so often is LMI. When I say that, I mean that this is a HUD designation for low to moderate income household based on the yearly median income. For 2018, the median income for Kootenai County has been designated to be $62,900. So as an example, for a household size of 2, 30%, which would be extremely low income in HUD's designation, would be any household earning less than $16,460. So from 30, 15, 80% to HUD, that'd be extremely low income, and moderately low income. Kind of on a sliding scale there. And when selecting activities each year, staff must consider that activities must meet national objective, activities must meet annual action plan and consolidated plan goals, both of which include a great deal of community participation in forming. When choosing activities, staff must consider capacity of staff, size of allocation, and capacity of subrecipient organizations. If organizations are large enough to monitor the funds we give them, things like that. 6 established goals that led the city's CDBG funding efforts in 2017 are listed here. These are the same goals that Mayor and Council approved for guiding our 2018 annual action plan as well. They've been established to be as important as ever. I'll just quickly take the audience through these. So goal 1, increase the supply of for sale housing. 2, increase the supply of rental housing, especially for those residents with special needs, including persons who are homeless. Improve the city's sidewalks to make them more accessible for ADA. Continue with neighborhood revitalization efforts to improve housing. Expand higher paying employment through economic development. And last but not least, offer public service program assistance to service organizations. During 2017, all projects and activities proceeded as anticipated. 3 goals that did not receive funding, however, were increase of for sale affordable housing, ADA sidewalk installation, and economic development. Staff is in the planning process with the city's Streets and Engineering Department to complete a sidewalk project by the end of this summer. So planning is in progress for that. As far as the for sale affordable housing and economic development, those are both items that require large funding partners to accomplish, and these are opportunities for these are available each year through the Community Opportunity Grant, and will be again in 2018. This graph illustrates 2017 project funding and status. From the top, I'll just take you through these line items. So, city approved $3,000 for Lake City Center's Meals on Wheels program, serving area homebound seniors in our community. That is in progress. The Sidewalk Accessibility Fund was budgeted at $14,600. This is also in progress, or excuse me, in planning, hopefully, as I mentioned, for a late summer project. There are funds left over in 2016, $14,600, that we can utilize in our 2018 project to be almost $30,000 worth of funds. Emergency Minor Home Repair Program, that's very popular in our community. That offers $5,000 home repair grants to qualifying households. Do a lot of work with leaking roofs, perhaps a furnace that died in winter, things like that. That program is strict and does have requirements that applicants should consider. They can go to www.cdaid.org/MRAP to look over those guidelines. That was budgeted at $50,000 in 2017 and increased to $73,272.17 after 2 minor amendments were approved. Minor amendments do not have to go through council, just so you know, at least for CDBG. Community opportunity grants, this was budgeted at $171,470. Grants are in progress. One has been paid in full, and then the remaining was administration. And the minor amendments that you see noted here on the left-hand column, I just want to briefly take you through what that means for us. So due to a change in accounting procedure, CDBG no longer allows its recipients to carry over funds from prior years. Because of this, we had to kind of catch up a year and spend down admin. Well, what this means going forward, let me start there. We must spend down needed admin as best we can once we receive it, no matter when we actually receive our allocation, because all of our spent admin in a program year would be counted against our 20% cap. So if we spent funds in 2016 funds during 2017, that would count against our 2017 cap. So we had to move, in order to prevent us from going over our 20% cap for 2017, we had to move about $20,000 out of admin into, and you see that split between the emergency minor home repair grant, yeah, and a second minor amendment was from funds that were left on the table through the community opportunity grant process. So there was about a $20,000 push from admin funds into the emergency minor home repair program, and then $2,000 into the MRAP fund from the community opportunity grant. So, and just a brief background here for folks who haven't been following our community opportunity grants. These were the 4 awarded grants this year from the 2017 cycle. They include 2 rehabilitation projects, 2 public facilities, and 2 public service projects. Of the 2017 homes that were repaired, there were 21 that were repaired, during 2017. But most were roofs, as I mentioned, but also ADA bathroom updates, electrical and plumbing needs. And this graph illustrates our revised budget suggestions that staff is putting forth for approval, and this would go along with the 2018 annual action plan. On the left-hand column features budget items Mayor and Council formally approved, with the middle column showing our suggestions. So you'll see the top 3 items have not changed at all. That's largely because these are, well, first, the Lake City Center did increase by $2,000 after the last public hearing. So in 2018, it will be $5,000 to that fund, when formerly it was $3,000. And the other two items, sidewalk accessibility at $14,600 and MRAP at $50,000, all of those items are working well. Our programs are running smoothly with those dollar items. We don't generally run out of emergency minor home repair funds each year. That could change going forward, but as of right now, there has been no need to increase it. And as far as the sidewalk repair, because we are still working on planning our projects and don't have a successful one every year, there's not a need to, in our opinion, increase those budgets quite yet. We perceive that the largest increase of the budget should go towards the community opportunity grants. And that is because, as you can see on the bottom of the screen here, the allocation was estimated by HUD to come to the city at $243,000, and it was increased, or excuse me, our actual award was $318,476. So got a nice big bump there, and we have the majority of that bump going straight into the community opportunity grants, which can accomplish the majority of the 6 goals that I read off to you. You do see here a discrepancy in the percentage of admin that we are recommending go down, and that's not because we want to decrease admin. That is an allowable percentage of admin spent dollars to spend, but you see a discrepancy of about $6,000 here that would make up the 20%. And that's because we still have $6,000 left in 2017, which we will use in 2018 and will count against our 20% cap. So again, we're just being cognizant of our responsibilities to HUD. Any funding that is left over in admin will go straight back into projects and likely would be emergency minor home repair. But this bottom figure, this is our budget is a bit of a moving target as far as travel and training or any required assessments that HUD might require us to do. So we don't always know exactly for our admin needs, but again, we would always turn funds back over because we now cannot use them for next year's funds. Thank you very much, and I stand for comment, or excuse me, questions.
For Michelle?
I have one question, Michelle. So is admin always 20%, or is that the cap?
That's the maximum.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be 20%.
No, it doesn't have to be 20%, but, you know, larger allocations usually always take that 20%.
Sure.
We're running, or excuse me, the city CDBG runs about 18% average, although there have been years where they have needed all of its admin dollars, depending on the year. Sometimes some years will be much less, so the average is about $48,000. But, you know, yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions for Michelle Keegan?
Just real quick, sorry, did I?
Go ahead.
I kind of leaned forward. I'm blocking you out here. I'm feeling uncomfortable about that. So just so that I'm clear about the next cycle you're going to come to, we're approving the 2017 and the annual action plan for 2018. So the next actual items that are, what is the calendar grant cycle application and approval dates for what we're looking at for 2018 in this action plan?
Well, that's a good question. So our action plan is part of our consolidated plan, and that's due in June. But it won't be approved for maybe 2 months. So our allocation, our plan year actually began in April 1st. So the city's CDBG grant runs April 1st to March 31st. So we might get our funds, which were awarded to us. Now we just have to finish our submittal process and receive the funding. We might get them as early as, well, let's not count on the federal government for this one on timeliness. But last year we received our funds in October. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I'm just looking at as you make the plan and then what you expected to get and plan for, now it's much higher.
Yeah.
and you're making those adjustments and putting all of that into your community action, the grants.
Yeah.
How does that affect your cycle of awarding grants, is I guess where I was going with the question.
Oh, well, it wouldn't affect, in my mind, it wouldn't affect our awarding of grants in future, because the majority of that has not happened yet. So we haven't opened our community opportunity grant cycle yet. We don't have designated dates for that. However, like listening to feedback from the community would like a longer application timeline. So we're going to manage that for this year. I believe last year it was a month and a half open, and we might try to extend that to 2 months or 2.5 months with offering more technical assistance sessions.
And then my other question was, in that application, in that process, has there been any discussion on the ability to partner with any entities for improvements to the East Sherman area as those suggestions and community requests come forward?
Well, we did receive public comment which suggested using funds over in that area and marrying up some goals. And we can certainly meet those goals with our community development block grant funds. The north part of Sherman sits in an LMI census tract, so we can do certain things with area benefit, and then as far as specific benefit, for instance, demolition of spots that might be blighted, we could assist with that. I think there's talk in the planning department of making an urban renewal district potentially in that zone. I'm not sure, that's definitely not certain yet, but once there's a designation for urban renewal or revitalization, we can focus CDBG efforts over there. Right now, there's not anything in the annual action plan that would direct funds to East Sherman, but in the next annual action plan, council could suggest, or other comments we get, people could suggest we focus funds or a portion of the funds. Specifically, what this might be for us would be 50% of the community opportunity grants would weigh higher for East Sherman projects potentially. That could be a suggestion moving forward.
Okay, just as long as that discussion's still on the table, and then it'll come back during the next planning session.
Yeah, every year we can reassess that, yes.
Great, thank you.
Questions for Michelle? Ron, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm glad to see that you've got here on your budget, your 2018 annual action plan budget, the increase in the senior centers Meals on Wheels from 3,000 to 5,000. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yes, definitely, and I believe you and English over here made those suggestions specifically at the last hearing, and you all voted on those then. So, yes, and I believe if I heard correctly, that program's had a rise in food costs recently, so this rise in award to them is coming at a good time, to the Lake City Center.
Michelle, I had a question. So you have $76,165.96 as carryover into the next year. So those are additional funds that are available from 2017?
Okay, yes, thank you. So these are funds that have not been directly allocated yet because they are still sitting in sidewalk and emergency minor home repair fund.
Are there people that have made applications for those funds?
Oh yes, we're running about 7 home repair projects right now, and I anticipate before the big construction boom of summer ends that will increase to 15, 20. So.
And then explain the sidewalk fund to me. Would that be available? Let's say there's a low-income senior that owns a home, that their sidewalk needs repair. Is that something that's available to do that, to help them repair that sidewalk?
Yes, it is, in fact. We do large sidewalk projects in low to moderate income census tracts, but we can do specific sidewalk and ADA accessibility issues for qualifying homeowners anywhere that sit in the city limits that meet I believe, are the standards of our MRAP household requirements, which right now is a single unit home. So a duplex, we may not be able to assist with currently with the way our MRAP policy sits, but
So that money is available. It doesn't seem like we've been using it. So you do have money for that MRAP program that people have made application for, but you have the 14.6 available for sidewalks. Is there anything in process with that right now?
yeah, there are, yes, talks with Ted going on right now about where we could assist sidewalks for a late summer 18 project. And
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. Michelle actually meant Tim Martin. So under the sidewalk program, she keeps calling him Ted. That's okay. We'll keep calling him Ted. Under the sidewalk allocation, we work with our street department to carve out a little area where they're already working on, but that maybe has a road going off of it that's in the LMI census tract. So we try and make use of our current resources. And they've been focused in an area downtown for the past 2 years, so they haven't been able to do any of the LMI projects. So this summer, they're working on Lakeside, so we're trying to work with them to find out what little area they might be able to tag on when they have a few spare days in between their main project.
So are they working with specific homeowners then, low-income homeowners to do it, or they're just doing it in wherever that tract is?
So yes, this project is specific to a geographical area that's within a LMI census tract that we've already done an environmental review on. So we've designated this area and we kind of can work on it over the next 3 to 5 years. But the individual homeowner can always come in through an emergency minor home repair program and ask for assistance with a sidewalk project or an ADA accessibility issue. We've put in ramps to people's front doors from their driveways, any of those type of things, but they would have to individually qualify their household.
Okay, all right. All right, any other questions for Michelle? Doesn't look like it. Thank you very much. And I will, at this time, open up the public testimony portion of it. I don't have anyone signed up to testify for that. Is there anyone in the audience that hasn't signed up that would wish to testify on this issue? Do not see anyone, so I will close the public testimony portion of that and look for council action.
I'll make a motion to approve the Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report in review of its plan year 2017 and the updated annual action plan for plan year 2018.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I was just going to congratulate Michelle on a very nice presentation, very thorough. Thank you.
thank you.
All right, so if no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much, Michelle. Appreciate that. Now, we'll move on to another legislative hearing, our final one of the night. This is conveyance of 3.7 acres of city-owned land to Rivers Edge Apartments LLC in exchange for 3.8 acres of land owned by River Edge Apartments LLC. Mike Gridley. Mike, did everyone get a chance to sign up on that list that wishes to give comment? Anyone that hasn't had an opportunity to sign up on that list that wishes to give public comment, the list is over there. Troy has that list. So, Mike, go ahead.
Well, Dan's not going to coach me on the full screen here, so I'm going to have to find
F5.
it. F5. Sweet.
Glad you said 5.
Thank you. This is a follow-up to the council action that happened on May 15th, where council expressed their intent to exchange property that the city owns, railroad property, west or south of Celtice, west of Riverstone, the railroad property depicted in blue here, that we are proposing to exchange for property owned by Rivers Edge Apartments. That's this pink triangle piece here. The properties are similarly sized, similarly valued, and this is the hearing, public hearing, to receive public comment on the merits of that proposed exchange. I think one of the goals of the exchange is to allow both property owners, the city that owns this blue property here, the Atlas waterfront property, and River's Edge that owns this pink property, to both have complete property without missing pieces. So if the exchange is approved, then the respective property owners, city would own this as a complete parcel, and River's Edge would own this as a complete parcel. Stepping back a minute, behind the proposed exchange, there is the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that was approved by council between the city and River's Edge Apartments. The Memorandum of Understanding is an agreement that the parties have expressed their goals and desires, and provides a framework for us to go forward to negotiate and work through the development of this property. And specifically, the owner, River's Edge, of the property here in pink, they intend to build apartments. They intend to request an increase in zoning to an R34 zoning, increase the zoning to allow additional apartments. As part of that agreement, applies for the exchange, but also allows for a 40-foot trail easement along the river that will be open to the public. So the background of the exchange is the MOU, and the MOU says the exchange will not take place until the requirements or the goals of both parties as stated in the MOU are met. So what we're doing tonight, if approved, would authorize the mayor to execute deeds to exchange properties, but that won't happen until the planning process for the River's Edge property is completed, and both sides are satisfied that the deal that is contained in the MOU is met. So one of the questions we received from some of the public is thinking that this is a done deal right now. What this is approving this for the next step to go forward. The applicant, River's Edge, will be required to submit their proposal for that piece of property to the city. It will go through the Planning Commission. There will be public hearings received on the design and the layout and the components of that. And then ultimately, it will be either approved or denied by Planning Commission, and then ultimately could be appealed and approved or denied by City Council. So trying to explain everything to everybody, but tonight the question is how do you back up when you want to back up? Is should the city authorize the mayor to sign deeds that would allow for the exchange of city-owned property, railroad property, former railroad property, for River's Edge-owned property here.
Okay, questions for Mike? I'm sure we have some.
I'll make up one.
I was trying to see if anybody else could start besides you, but if you want to start, you go ahead.
Actually, my question would probably be more for Hillary, if she knows the answers to these questions. I'm asking about density. So I just want to see, we're swapping the land, and the end result is going to be that the larger piece, the River's Edge part, he's going to ask for increased density on that. What was the total number of units he was desiring to put in? Was it 800?
It was around that number. If you remember from the staff report that Mike Gridley presented last council meeting, I think it was 870.
Okay.
Would be possible max density based on the calculation of that entire acreage.
And currently, how many units would go in there? Do you know that off the top of your head? I'm sorry if I'm surprising you with this.
I know, let me pull that one up. Existing development potential on that lot, 252 on this northern section.
Yeah.
And 86 on the southern portion.
Okay.
And 131 on this.
And without even adding those up, I can see that's far less than 870.
It's 469.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. And that was just my question, was what the new density figure would be. So it's going to be greater than he's allowed by right to currently develop on the separate parcels.
Correct.
Okay.
Hillary, while you're here.
Yes.
I should ask council if anyone else has questions for you, so we don't waste a trip for you.
Okay.
Any other members of the council have a question for Hillary?
I might. Don't go far away.
She might come
Okay.
up with one, so it's
I'll-
a short,
I'll
it's a short
stand
walk.
close by.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions for Mike?
For Mike, I just wanted to be clear. We've agreed to the MOU, which was the memorandum of it, and what we're doing tonight is just agreeing that the mayor will have the ability to do this exchange by deed if both parties get what they want. But at any point, this could totally go back to square one.
Right.
Okay.
And so this is, the MOU was an expression by council that it would support the concept that he's bringing forward, subject to it going through the process, planning commission, the public hearing process, but would support it. And if that all works out, then we'll do this exchange. At any point in time, either party can walk away from the MOU, walk away from the exchange. So we're not bound. He couldn't come in and say, well, wait a minute, you approved that Tuesday night. You must give me that property. That doesn't
Okay.
work.
And I think that's important to note, that the public input and the amount of reliance we're putting on our planning department and the planning commission is really where, for me, I'm looking for them to cross the Ts and dot the Is before any of this is finalized. So, thank you.
So Mike, I guess a question is, and this is probably getting too far into the details, but for example, the 40-foot right-of-way or easement that we're asking for on his property, the determination of where that 40 feet starts at, is that going to be determined in all of these planning hearings? Because you can have different determinations of where that line is, of what your 40 feet is. I would imagine we want that at the most optimal point for us.
Yeah, and I think that will be part of the design as the concept goes forward. We actually had a meeting, Troy, me, Phil Boyd, Welch Comer, and Mr. Douglas had a meeting this afternoon to try and talk through some of these issues and coordinate with the planning that's going on with Welch Comer with the Atlas property. So it's very clear in our discussions that the 40 feet will be on usable, flat, good property. It's not going to be half in the river and half out. And so, but that is a detail that will come through in our planning through the proposal.
So the pedestrian trail, you won't be getting your left foot wet then.
Yeah, and I think the track record from what we've seen is that the applicant, River's Edge, does a good job, and they intend to do a seawall, spend a considerable amount of money, because the trail is an amenity for their apartments too, and so they don't want something that's going to get flooded or going to get washed out in high water. So all our discussions have been, yes, we'll get it figured out as we go forward through the planning process.
Yeah, Kiki.
And just to follow up on that location question, as I recall, the property owners, River's Edge, intends to retain the riparian rights to the water, regardless of where the border ends up being of our piece of land.
Yes, so we would have a permanent easement. We wouldn't own it, but the easement would allow us to control it, use it forever, basically, so.
Then Mike, do you see in this process, would that annexation agreement need to be amended?
Yes, and that's one of the elements of the MOU. We said we would work to amend the annexation agreement. We promised to collaborate with Department of Lands, other public entities to try and make the waterfront something that works well for the community. So it's intended to be a collaborative approach for both sides to get what they want.
And that annexation agreement, the amended annexation agreement, would come back to this group?
Yes.
For approval?
Yes. And we've had discussions for several years now, and I think the process we're doing now is giving some clarity and assurance that things like this, the annexation agreement, will be dealt with by necessity of approving the new design for the bigger piece that he's going to have now. In the past, it's been difficult because the annexation agreement had the railroad running through the middle of it, and how you deal with that and how that gets designed. So this would hopefully allow for both parties to go forward with more efficient design that makes sense.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike? All right, thank you, Mike.
Yep.
I will open the public comment portion of this, and we have the first one on the list. We have Chet Gady that wishes to say something.
Again.
Again.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Chet Gady in Mill River. After the last meeting when River's Edge made their presentation of what they could possibly look at, Councilman Edinger asked what the people in Mill River would feel, how they feel about this. And I've been thinking about that answer, and I've been talking to some people, and I support this project. I support the MOU. I support the land swap. If you ask me how I felt about this project, I would say I don't like it. And I don't like it because now when I drive down Celtice, I look out there and there's this nice open field. And then we're going to have apartments, and I'm not going to like that. But I support it. I support it because I think about it, and I think about how you have to compare the options you have. It's going to increase density. Isn't that what cities are for? I mean, don't we want our densities in our cities? So if we don't have the density here and we put it out on the prairie, does that help anyone? I'm going to lose that view shed as I drive down Celtice. But I'd lose that view shed anyway if you built by right to those heights. So I think the important thing to remember for council is not as how people feel, but what's the option of what they're going to get. And Councilmember Miller pointed out a great thing, I think, that you want to encourage staff, you want to encourage the public to give you their opinions, yay or nay on this, and not be swept up in that the MOU seems to support the whole idea. And so if I was on staff, should I be scared about coming up with something that's against the project? I think in order to make the comparisons, council needs all the yays and nays from the public and staff, and then go forward. And I do support this. And one more thing I'd like you to remember is that you are trading property. Property has value. That makes this different than if someone submitted a normal PUD. When someone submits a normal PUD, it's a lot of reaction by the city on what they wanted, and then what can the city get, and what's the ordinance say. But now you've got this extra trump card that you can get into real estate development with and say, we want this, and you can be proactive. And I'm glad to hear about the meeting with Mr. Douglas saying, hey, this is what we're going to need. And so I just encourage you to go forth with this with a lot of care, a lot of attention to detail, and thank you very much for hard work on it.
Thank you, Chet. We had one more person on the list. Sherry Robinson wishes to testify.
And I'm going to defer.
When you need to speak up here. Sorry about that.
Okay, Sherry Robinson, also Mill River, and I think, I was going to talk about the width of the trail, but I think it's way too early to be talking about that, so I will defer my comments for later.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Thank you. So those are the only two that I had on the list. Anyone else wish to be added to this list at this time would be available to make public comment right now. Okay, if there aren't any, I will then close the public comment portion of that and look for council action.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Well, I'll just say that I don't like the density, but, you know, I got to say what Chet said resonates. You know, it's just.
I move to approve Resolution 18033, conveyance of 3.7 acres of city-owned land to Rivers Edge Apartments, LLC, in exchange for 3.8, we come out ahead, of land owned by Rivers Edge Apartments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion. Dan, you have anything else?
Well, just the density, it's going to, I mean, not only is Chet losing his view shed, but he's going to have to wait a couple of cycles to get through a stoplight too, because it's going to add a lot of cars. It's going to double what's allowed by right here. And like I said last time, though, that waterfront, that's pretty precious.
Chet likes to ride his bike anyway, so.
Right, he'll never ride. He'll be off Celtice.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Gookin?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, Mike.
A motion to move into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-206A1A, considering labor contract offer or to formulate a counter offer.
Motion, we have motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch who seconded.
Me.
Amy.
Oh. Okay, Evans?
Yes.
English?
Yes.
Eddinger?
Yep.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Gookin?
Aye.
We are in executive session.